Have you ever looked at someone and wondered what is going on inside their head? Well, I know. I know Tonks's head.
Hi everyone, I'm Luna. Welcome to the Lunarium. I want to start by apologizing for not releasing a video last week. I decided to take the week off for my birthday. Although, truth be told, I only decided that after I struggled all last week to write a script. And the one day that I decided to just film without a script, I was too depressed to do almost anything other than lie in bed. And although that sucked, it actually is a good transition for our topic today, which is depression. Now, depression is one mental illness that pretty much everyone knows something about. Almost everyone knows someone who has experienced a depressive episode or has at least seen it referenced or depicted on TV.
Everything's wrong! The stress of my modern office has caused me to go into a depression.
Depression? Isn't that just a fancy word for feeling bummed out?
Dwight, you ignorant slut!
And yes, while Michael is tactfully as always only pretending to be depressed in this episode, the truth is that depression is oftentimes simplified to someone just feeling sad or, as Dwight put it, feeling bummed out. Part of the reason for this is the similarities between the adjective depressed and the clinical term depression. According to the all-knowing Google, the definition for the adjective depressed is to be in a state of general unhappiness or despondency, while depression is a clinical term that refers to a mood disorder like major depressive disorder or a depressive episode. These two terms become even more indistinguishable when people use the word depressed to refer to having been in a state of depression. So what, you might be thinking? The word depressed can refer to feeling unhappy or a mental illness. Why does it matter? To which I say, wow, that's kind of a hostile question, but I guess I'll answer it anyway. It matters because the more that people interchangeably use the word depressed to refer to someone feeling sad and someone feeling depressed, the more that people think that depression just means feeling sad. As someone who has lived with major depressive disorder most, if not all, of my life, I can testify that there are a lot of problems with people thinking that depression is just a fancy term for feeling bummed out. Everyone experiences sadness sometimes, but not everyone experiences depression. According to the World Health Organization, more than 264 million people each year experience depression, which is around 3.4% of the world's population. While sadness is a temporary emotion often caused by external events or negative occurrences, depression can be a lifelong or very long-lasting mental health condition. Reducing depression to sadness makes it seem like people can just snap out of it by thinking about the positives. I remember this meme that I saw where people were making fun of how people talk about depression online. It said something like, I remember one time I was depressed. My pet turtle had just died and I was so sad. But then I thought about all the kids in Africa who don't even have a pet turtle, and then I felt so much better. And yeah, obviously this is an exaggeration, but not by much. If you post anywhere on social media about depression, you'll be met with tons of messages of people recommending that you look at the glass half full, or just think about all the people who are worse off than you are, or to try yoga. Please stop telling people to try yoga. It's so annoying. The problem with such advice, of course, is that it implies that people experiencing depression just have bad attitudes or are ungrateful or are failing to fix something that's easily fixable. Sure, maybe focusing on the positives and doing yoga might be helpful coping skills, although I must insist that comparing yourself to someone less fortunate in order to feel better about your life is really disturbing. Still, these things will never cure depression, and to suggest otherwise really delegitimizes the severity of an illness that can be life-threatening. So today I want to take a look at what it's really like to live with depression. And in order to illustrate some concepts and experiences that can feel really abstract, we are going to do this by using a character as an example. And the character that we're going to use is Riley from Disney Pixar's 2015 film Inside Out. The last time I made a video like this, which was about BPD, if you haven't seen it, click the link above. A lot of people didn't seem to notice my disclaimer that I was saying I wasn't necessarily diagnosing a character with a mental illness. So I'm going to make a bigger deal about this disclaimer. I am not necessarily saying that Riley has depression. I am just using her as an example to help make this easier to understand and to relate to. Good? Okay. For those who haven't seen Inside Out, which, by the way, if you haven't, why haven't you? It's amazing. I pulled this synopsis from Pixar's website. Growing up can be a bumpy road, and it's no exception for Riley, who is uprooted from her Midwest life when her father starts a new job in San Francisco. Like all of us, Riley is guided by her emotions: joy, fear, anger, disgust, and sadness. The emotions live at headquarters, the control center inside Riley's mind, where they help advise her through everyday life. As Riley and her emotions struggle to adjust to a new life in San Francisco, turmoil ensues in headquarters. Although joy, Riley's main and most important emotion, tries to keep things positive, the emotions conflict on how best to navigate a new city, house, and school. Riley is basically a goofy, honest girl who likes hockey, her family, and her friends.
I don't want to get too technical, but these are called core memories. Each one came from a super important time in Riley's life. Like when she first scored a goal. That was so amazing. And each core memory powers a different aspect of Riley's personality. Like Hockey Island. The point is, the islands of personality are what make Riley.
Riley's carefree life is turned upside down, however, when her family abruptly moves. The loss of her childhood home and friends really hits Riley hard, and it changes the way that she feels about herself and her life.
Dad, look at the car. Just look behind you.
No. Nice one, Joy.
I like that time with the dinosaur. That was pretty funny. Wait, what happened?
She did something to the memory.
What did you do?
I just touched it.
Sadness touching a memory that used to make Riley happy has now turned that memory into something that will make Riley sad. And this doesn't just happen once. Sadness seems to have a compulsion to touch all of the memories that remind Riley that her life in Minnesota is over.
It's just that I wanted to maybe hold you.
Joy!
Whoa. Sadness, you nearly touched a core memory. And when you touch them, we can't change them back.
Oh, I know, I'm sorry. Something's wrong with me.
Sadness's unconscious urge to convert Riley's happy memories into unhappy memories really rang true for me as someone who lives with depression. When I am particularly struggling with my depression, memories that used to make me happy or memories of happy times just fill me with emptiness or sadness, especially if those memories have to do with a loss. And make no mistake, Riley is dealing with a loss. We tend to think about grief only in terms of bereavement, as in coping after someone has died. But grief is a legitimate emotion to feel whenever you lose anything that has brought you comfort or stability, such as your childhood home. Sometimes I think about my depression or mental illness in general like a parasite. Often when I'm depressed, I find myself listening to music that's going to make me even more depressed, or isolating even though socializing will make me feel better, or ruminating on memories that are just going to fill me with grief. It's almost like my depression takes over my decision making and does whatever it can to make me more and more depressed. Sadness's compulsion to convert all of Riley's memories to sad ones, and also the fact that joy touching the converted memories doesn't change them back into happy memories, really reminded me of how depression can feel like a parasite. We can kind of view sadness as a physical representation of a depressive parasite, subconsciously eager to convert all of Riley's memories to be sad and depressing. But sadness doesn't only feel a compulsion to touch regular memories. She also wants to touch core memories, the memories that have defined Riley's entire personality. Sadness's desire to touch core memories causes the memory that has made Riley be goofy and silly to temporarily get dislodged. In other words, depression has briefly made Riley lose a part of herself.
All right, get ready. This is a monster railing, and we are riding it all the way down. Wait, what happened?
A core memory!
Oh, no! Sadness, what are you doing?
It looked like one was crooked, so I opened it and then it fell out.
That's how depression feels for me a lot of the time. Like I've lost an essential part of myself. I lose interest in the activities I enjoy or even the people that I love being around. And that leaves me kind of feeling like the ghost of myself. And it's hard to know how to find myself again when I lack the interest or energy to participate in the activities that make me feel most alive. Luckily for Riley, her core memory is only dislodged for a moment, and she's able to reconnect to her silliness and slide down the stair rail just like she always would. However, the next day is Riley's first day at her new school, and it does not go well. While Riley is in the middle of introducing herself to her new class, her happy memory of playing hockey back in Minnesota suddenly fills her with overwhelming sadness.
It's kind of a family tradition. We go out on the lake almost every weekend. Or we did till I moved away.
Hey, what gives?
What?
Hey, Sadness, you touched a memory? We talked about this.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
This is how depression feels for me a lot of the time too. I'll be feeling fine or even happy when all of a sudden I'm completely overwhelmed with sadness or emptiness or anger. Sometimes depression hits me because of something that happens in my day, but sometimes it just completely comes out of nowhere. And for me, this is one of the most frustrating parts of experiencing depression, because how do you work on fixing something when you don't even know what the problem is? Unfortunately for Riley, as a result of sadness touching that memory, joy and sadness get sucked out of headquarters and into the long-term memory storage portion of Riley's mind. With joy and sadness missing from headquarters, that means that Riley is unable to feel happiness or sadness. I think it's so important that people hear that experiencing depression doesn't just mean that you're sad. Sometimes experiencing depression means that you're empty, hopeless, irritable, angry, especially in children or adolescents. My depression, for example, makes me feel empty and hopeless a lot more than it makes me feel sad. In fact, when I'm depressed, a lot of the time I wish I could feel sadness just so that I could feel anything. As for Riley, now she's only left with fear, disgust, and anger to control her emotions, which leaves her acting very differently than her normal, happy self.
Here, you pretend to be Joy.
Won't it be great to be back out on the ice?
Oh yeah, that sounds fantastic.
What was that? That wasn't anything like Joy.
Because I'm not Joy?
Yeah, no kidding.
So, how was the first day of school?
She's probing us.
I'm done. You pretend to be Joy.
What? Okay,
It was fine, I guess. I don't know.
I think most people can understand someone feeling depressed when that means that that person is sad. After all, everyone feels sad sometimes, and that's an emotion that tends to elicit sympathy from other people. However, I think it can be hard for people to empathize with someone experiencing depression when that depression manifests in irritability, hopelessness, anger, emptiness, especially because those emotions can often lead to someone lashing out at others or being unpleasant.
School was great, all right?
Riley, is everything okay?
Listen, young lady, I don't know where this disrespectful attitude came from.
You want a piece of this, Pops? Come and get it!
Yeah, well, just shut up!
That's it. Go to your room. Now.
Depression can have a significant negative impact on the relationships in your life. We see this both in the way that Riley has a fight with her parents, but also in the way that she has a fight with her best friend.
Oh, and we've got this new girl on the team. She's so cool.
She did not just say that.
A new girl? Meg has a new friend already?
Hey, stay happy. We do not want to lose any more islands here, guys.
We can pass the puck to each other without even looking. It's like mind reading.
You like to read minds, Meg? I got something for you to read right here.
Let's just be calm for one second.
I hear they have ferrets. I gotta go. What? I gotta go.
I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that it can be hard to maintain healthy, positive relationships when you're constantly feeling sad, empty, or angry. I'll be the first to admit it. I'm sometimes a terrible friend. I'm frequently so overwhelmed with depression that I struggle to respond to texts or phone calls. I never know when I'm going to have days where I feel like I can't get out of bed, so I often cancel social plans, often at the last minute. And even when I do make it to social occasions, I normally am too depressed to be a lot of fun anyway. And even if people do enjoy my company, I normally feel so worthless that I isolate because I assume no one wants to be around me anyway.
What did you get?
Riley's depression continues to interfere with her life and her relationships when she tries out for the local hockey team.
Let's pick her up out there!
Riley, what's wrong?
Let's go.
You're not going to finish tryouts?
What's the point?
Feeling hopeless and worthless can make trying anything feel really pointless, especially when you feel like you've already failed. And so much of Riley's identity is tied up in hockey that when she gives up at the tryout, it causes her to feel even more empty and lost. And it's in this state that anger comes up with the idea that Riley should run away to live back in Minnesota. An idea that obviously makes no long-term sense, but to Riley and her emotions' defense, they are working with the prefrontal cortex of an 11-year-old. And in order to run away, Riley steals her mom's credit card.
Mom and Dad got us into this mess. They can pay to get us out.
Well, we were promised delivery on the 5th.
I hope I don't offend anyone else living with depression when I say that depression can sometimes make people act selfishly. Something that's completely understandable given how depression takes over your mind and overwhelms you with how miserable you feel. But regardless of how understandable it is or not, the reality is that depression can often make people be a little short-sighted. Sometimes someone can be so fixated on their desperation to escape their own misery that they forget how their actions will influence the people around them. And this is what can cause someone to behave in ways that can be hurtful to others, such as stealing your mom's credit card or attempting suicide. Riley buys a bus ticket and skips school in order to head to the bus station. Once she's actually in line for the bus, though, anger, fear, and disgust panic and realize that running away is a terrible plan.
This is madness! She shouldn't run away!
Let's get this idea out of her head.
Unfortunately, it's already too late for Riley to change her mind.
It's stuck!
Oh, great.
What do you mean it's stuck?
Now what?
No! What is this?
Guys, we can't make Riley feel anything.
What have we done?
Now, I need to say a major content warning for suicidal ideation. If you are someone who might find that kind of content triggering and you don't want to watch, skip ahead to this timestamp right here. Potential triggering content coming in 3, 2, 1. I know that running away is not as drastic an action as attempting suicide, but for me, watching the way that a self-destructive idea takes over Riley's mind until she's filled with nothing but a grim determination to complete an action to help her escape unbearable pain really reminded me of what it's like to feel suicidal. For me, anyway, suicide always starts as just this faint hope in the back of my mind that there's a way to escape my pain. Soon, more and more of my mind is taken over with plans and desperation to not feel anymore until eventually I feel like I have no other option. And once I commit to that option, anything else feels impossible. In almost all cases, suicidality isn't about wanting to die, it's about wanting to escape pain. But the way to do that isn't to avoid feeling or to take drastic and reckless action. In order to feel better, the first step is almost always to acknowledge the pain that you're in.
Sadness, it's up to you.
Me?
Sadness?
I can't, Joy.
Yes, you can. Riley needs you.
Wait, stop! I want to get off!
Because unless you acknowledge how much pain you're in, you won't ever be able to ask for help.
I know you don't want me to, but I miss home.
Riley comes home and finally tells her parents how badly she's been feeling. And it's this vulnerability and honesty that makes her parents realize that she needs their support. They let her know that there's nothing wrong with how she's been feeling and also make sure she knows that she's loved.
Come here.
Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like things will magically get better the second that you ask for help. I've asked for help countless times, and I still live with depression. In fact, I always will, since major depressive disorder can't be cured. That being said, there are many different treatments out there for depression, including various kinds of therapies and antidepressant medications. Many people who have experienced a major depressive episode are able to successfully treat their depression and to live in remission, as in their symptoms lessen to a point where they're no longer negatively impacting their life. And yes, while Healthline states that at least 50% of individuals who's experienced one episode of depression have one or more depressive episodes, a person living with depression has so much to look forward to and to live for. To anyone watching this who knows someone who experiences depressive episodes, please try and support them. Please try to understand that they have an illness caused by genetics, brain structure, brain chemistry, or another condition, and that it isn't their fault. Support them by encouraging them to seek help, understanding when they have difficulties performing responsibilities or keeping to social engagements, and also make sure that they know that you'll stay with them no matter how bad their depression gets. For anyone living with depression, I see you. I know how hard it can be, and I'm proud of you for waking up every day and for continuing to try and feel better. Know that you're not alone and that help is out there. Try and reach out to the people in your life and let them know how badly you've been feeling. Not everyone is going to respond with support or in the right way, but you'll never know who's going to help you unless you ask for help. I'm also going to leave an international list of suicide prevention hotlines in the video description down below. Find your country's suicide prevention hotline and program that into your phone. And then promise to yourself that you'll call that number anytime that you're seriously considering suicide. The volunteers or employees who work those phones are there to talk to you whenever you need it, and are also able to connect you with services in your area. Because you matter, your life matters, and things can get better. I promise. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. I'm really trying to grow my channel, and it would really help me out. Also, let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I decided to focus more on the emotional and lived aspects of depression instead of listing the DSM's diagnostic criteria in this video. And I'd really appreciate hearing if you found this format helpful or if it didn't feel educational enough. As always, please take care of yourself. Until next time, bye.